Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, welcome to Moving Forward. It is good to be back with you, and tonight I want to first enlighten you with the help we should now be giving to our diplomatic friends, the Taiwanese. We have to make every effort on the international front, regardless of what China has to say, because we do have a friend who is always prepared to help us in every way they can. In my estimation, we are without a doubt blessed to have them as a diplomatic friend. They have on many occasions eased our stress in terms of finding the resources we need in putting things in place for our development. And not only that, they have in some measure soothed our anxiety. We, as diplomatic friends, are finding common ground through shared appreciation of who we are and getting to know our cultures, whether in our country's literature, music, dances, etc. Our governments have enacted policies and pursued cooperation agreements that broaden young people's horizons of the two countries. This is why it is important to say quite clearly to the United Nations and the World Health Organization that the time has come to put China aside with the warped ways of thinking and ideas that are now archaic and unwarranted, and to now bring Taiwan out of the cold into the brotherhood of the United Nations family. It is simply absurd that a country who instigates everything of the United Nations should sit on the outside because of a country with warped ideas of a one China policy or principle. China at present should now come to the realizations that they are not fooling no one with this continued attempt of a one China policy, which is simply outdated and outwarranted. Not only that, but China believes that the Taiwan Straits is part of their country, and therefore they can control the ships that go through the straits. The US has made it clear that it is a freeway for ships to travel. Other countries like Germany, Japan, and the Philippines have made it clear that this is a free way. China is now going through, I must say to you, ladies and gentlemen, a terrible time in that part of the world from the ferocity of the weather, with so much being washed away. And many manufacturers, for example, leave in the country. And these are really big international firms. I feel sorry for them. Their banks are struggling with so many closures, and so many are becoming unemployed, that the time has come for them to consider working together with Taiwan instead of trying to bully and dominate the situation by making statements that are irrelevant and unwarranted. The BRI, which is the Belt Road Initiative, is now in tatters, and therefore the future for China is bleak. Even their outer space adventure is now blowing up in their faces. What have really upset me is that those who write about the history of Taiwan on television seem to forget that Taiwan had its own indigenous people, 21 tribes, and not what I'm hearing, that as if Chinese inhabitants were the early settlers of the island. That is crap. It shows how some want to turn history into what they want. I believe that the archaeological history of Taiwan should now be written so that the world will know of the 21 indigenous tribes that lived on Taiwan from its inception. Today, there are still 16 to 17 recognized tribes who had their own language and culture. Tonight, we will introduce the ambassador of Taiwan once again to speak to us in regards to Taiwan, being given their rightful place in the United Nations family and all its institutions. Here is the ambassador of Taiwan, the Honorable Peter Chen.
Good day. My name is Peter Chen, Taiwan ambassador to St. Lucia. As the 70th section of the UN General Assembly is approaching, I would like to share with you the importance of Taiwan's inclusion in the UN framework. The UNGA 79 represents a pivotal moment in achieving the global agenda towards achieving the 17 SDGs. The eagerly awaited Summit of the Future, convened as part of UNGA, highlights the critical importance of strengthening global cooperation to confront urgent issues like climate change, poverty, and inequality. It also aims to address the ongoing repercussions of conflicts and global health emergencies. Taiwan is an indispensable partner in global supply chains, producing more than 90% of the world's high-end semiconductors and a significant portion of the advanced chips that are driving the AI revolution. Moreover, half of the world's seaborne trade passes through the Taiwan Strait, making it a key international waterway. It can be said that large parts of the world and billions of people have enjoyed great prosperity thanks to the peace and stability that prevails across the Taiwan Strait. Therefore, the first and most urgent task that the UN must address is to stop succumbing to the PRC's pressure and refrain from distorting UN General Assembly Resolution 2758, adopted in 1971, any further. By willfully misrepresenting Resolution 2758 and falsely conflicting it with its own One China principle, which differs from the One China policy adopted by many countries, the PRC has relentlessly suppressed Taiwan's legitimate right to meaningfully participate in the UN and its specialized agencies. Over many decades, Taiwan has proven to be a responsible and reliable partner to those it has worked with. Taiwan has been contributing to Senusha and the global community in various fields, such as women and youth empowerment, agriculture, infrastructure, capacity building, public health, digital innovation, and social security. For a more secure and better world, the UN system needs to include Taiwan. I would also like to take this opportunity to express our deepest appreciation to Senusha along with our other diplomatic allies and like-minded countries for their ongoing and unwavering support for Taiwan's campaign in this regard. Please join us in calling on the UN to include Taiwan and to uphold the principles of universality, inclusiveness, and human dignity. Thank you.
The plea that the ambassador is making is justified, and countries whom Taiwan has helped and who have had dealings with them should know for themselves that Taiwan deserves to have a seat at the United Nations, more so the WHO, and that they are without a doubt an independent country. If any of the top ministers of the countries without diplomatic ties with Taiwan should search their conscience and ask themselves, if nearly 24 million people deserves being treated in the manner that Taiwan is being treated in the United Nations of all places. At present, China is going through all sorts, as I mentioned before, of problems, such as weather conditions in terms of floods and the destruction of valuable soil and land. Not only that, that many countries are pulling out of China because of their dishonesty in public relations and blatant disregard for the countries they deal with. They continue to say that Taiwan belongs to China, but nowhere in the history of Taiwan can I find that China actually owned Taiwan. More so, the Communist Party. They're the ones who see them as a breakaway part of China. My academics and heads of government in the world know that it is a concocted lie. I believe sincerely that people around the world should familiarize themselves with the United Nations General Assembly Resolution 2758, which the People's Republic of China, PRC, continue to distort because they want to continue to insist on a one China policy and that Taiwan belongs to them. I want to express that Chiang Kai-shek was given the opportunity to stay in the United Nations when China became part of it. He was offered the alternative that the ROC of Taiwan be called Taiwan, but he refused because he was always of the idea and opinion that he would one day go back to lead China per se in all its glory when he was ousted by Mao as the leader. Mao Zedong, that is. He simply miscalculated because of his arrogance. I sincerely believe that the United Nations General Assembly Resolution 2758 should address the issue one and for all, because it is simply ridiculous to internalize that China can so outwit the United Nations to do as it pleases on these issues. The PRC simply has no right to represent Taiwan, an independent democratic country with its own government and which abides by international rules and regulations. They are one of the countries that make every effort to follow the rules and regulations put out by the United Nations. Not only that, they should be part of the World Health Organization because they are one country that have some of the most modern medical facilities in the world. I vouch for that. I'm not Taiwanese by blood, but I'm Taiwanese in all other aspects because they are a country that the rest of the world can learn from. That, in my estimation, has no validity. I do hope that the United Nations will begin to think logically in the way they deal with Taiwan being part and parcel of the United Nations once and for all. At this juncture, I will take my first break. Welcome back to Moving Forward. Now is the time for prayer. Let us pray. Oh Father, it is a pleasure once again to say a prayer with my listeners, to praise you and thank you, because you are without a doubt the greatest and the one true God. You have without a doubt bestowed on us a humane individual as our Prime Minister, and he is at present doing everything possible to satisfy the wishes of all the people, wherever possible. He is without a doubt a humble individual who is the son of the soil, and he is proud of that. Let us therefore, with your guidance, bless him and give him focus on the job at hand. We believe in you because you are without a doubt the Prince of Peace, the King of Kings, and the Lord of Lords. Amen. Tonight I read from the Bible, Psalms chapter 36, verses 1 to 4. Sin speaks to the wicked man deep in his heart. He rejects God and does not have reverence for him because he thinks so highly of himself. He thinks that God will not discover his sin and condemn it. His speech is wicked and full of lies. He no longer does what is wise and good. He makes evil plans as he lies in bed. Nothing he does is good, and he never rejects anything evil. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. I chose this passage tonight because of what I have heard in the last week or so, which clearly shows that evil that seems to lurk in every nook and cranny of this country, especially where the opposition exists. We are supposed to be a nation of religious people, yet some in our midst never seem able to speak the truth, more so when they are politicians and in the throes of the opposition party. I heard the leader of the opposition on a program in that he went to Washington because that is where That is where no evidence in St. Lucia to prove that he knows. He said he saw with his own eyes and heard with his own ears. And I think that was dealing with certain things with, I don't know if it was with Martinez. So much so that there is clear evidence, he suggests, that this government knows what is going on or have the evidence. He was told quite succinctly, these are allegations, and that until we have the proof, therefore without the evidence, he was told quite clearly that you are making allegations. But the idiot or nincompoop failed to understand that, and that was on a recording on radio, because he wants to insinuate that the government is involved in some monkey business or some irregularities. The leader of the opposition seems obsessed as to how much money is in the escrow account, CIP that is, which I'm sure he knows himself. My question to these opposition reprobates is whether in their time in office, whether they shared any information with the opposition as far as CIP is concerned. I can assure them everything that they did not do, because they made it look as if it was not the opposition's business to know these things. Here's a government who, on coming into office, put on hold, that is the opposition, for 3 years, all that was in the pipeline that was left by the then Labour government. It was horrendous because they were looking for ways to manage and manipulate the then projects to suit their party friends. What I want to ask Alan is, did he have a conscience when he was spending St. Lucia's money that should have gone to the poor of the country, especially when he chose to spend £2,000 a night at a hotel in London? I would need to know the answer to that question. I also put another question to him, and it is somewhat personal, and that is, did you ever report to the people of St. Lucia or the then opposition what you were doing with CIP monies? Did you ever report to the people how much was in the escrow account? You never did. And now you expect this government to give you the same information you chose not to give them. Alan, in my view, you are consumed with hate because you were kicked out of office ingloriously because of the mismanagement of the country, which some are seen as, at times, alleged corruption. What amazes me is that in order for your government and party to get support before the last election, some people believe that much was done in trying to bribe the people to vote for your party. Comrade, I beg you to come to the people with the truth. I know it is hard for you. However, I tell you this, that your lies are now being exposed every time you do, because the public is now aware that you are not familiar with the truth. There is no doubt in many people's minds. It is like the pot calling the kettle black. Therefore, who are the biggest liars and deceivers in this beautiful land of ours? It is no one else but the United Wreckers of the Poor, led by Alan, their leader, who, as they seem, or the majority of them seem to kiss because, or is something, because they are without pride and dignity. At this juncture, I want to take up the case of the Association of Doctors and Dental Associations on television and Facebook. We saw a letter or complaint which should have gone to the members first, and a discussion should have taken place in that respect, which in my, I would say in my research was never done and was therefore leaked to the press first. Why? Yes, ladies and gentlemen, leaked to the press And that was deliberate to make the government look bad. There are a group in that association, I know, and it is alleged that they seem to have a dislike of this government. Why? I don't know. Question is, again, to them personally, why? Is there some internal differences with those at the top of the association? Are they allowing their political differences to impede what they are supposed to be concentrating on? And that is doing what is best for the health of the nation when we are so short of nurses and doctors? I'm asking these questions because I'm somewhat very disturbed by the attitude that is being portrayed by some who are unable to leave their politics to one side and do their job conscientiously. We see the same in the police, in the public service, and elsewhere. Many in these different organizations allowing their politics to cloud the issue of running the country efficiently and effectively. In my view, they seem like a bunch of morons. What they should be concerned with is making St. Lucia a better and safer place to live in for those to come, our children and their children. But all I see is a bunch of selfish people who allow politics to cloud the issues that should have been dealt with. Much of the problems that we have comes from the leader of the opposition and some of the higher echelon of the party. One firm supporter of the party in the press was somewhat perplexed by the attitude and mannerisms of a particular lady called Nancy, by what she was saying in a scandalous manner. This is the same lady who put herself on a big bus to tell St. Lucia that the work on the new airport would begin because the money was there. That was simply a lie, because she did not understand how getting money from banks work. But she thought, just like her prime minister then, that it was the Taiwanese embassy who was funding the project. Rubbish. They were there just to guarantee. Well, the money was not their money, the money, contrary to what she pointed out. To the extent the PM then got upset with the Taiwanese embassy for holding back the money as though they had it. And as alleged, made a song and dance with the embassy of holding back money. Well, it shows quite clearly how inept this last government was all about. Now we hear that same Nancy making stupid statements that was uncalled for. These people are acting like people who should be in an asylum, as I said last week. And when one considers that these are the people who wanted or who represented St. Lucians, then we do have mendicants, jackasses, or barking dogs, as their leader has made clear when he was in power. This is not coming from me, but from him. When a friend of their leader had to admonish her openly, that's Nancy, then he felt as disgusted as I did. When I hear people like that, I also think that we are still in the jungles of Africa before the slave trade, because we haven't released ourselves from mental slavery. It was at the lowest level. Therefore, I can now understand when their leader talks about 45% mendicants, that many were jackasses and barking dogs. I'll never stop saying that. Can this be the way business is done when it affects people's lives? This has nothing to do with government, but with doctors who decide that they will play games too, to the extent, even in their working capacity, they seem to work when they want, and to an extent, we are hearing of deaths that should never happen. Yes, I inquired about these things. Again, I asked the question, is that being done deliberately to shame the government? A damn good government? I wanted this juncture to ask the leader of the opposition, when he was prime minister and his government borrowed so much money for the desilting of the dam, for example, and the money for that to take place was there. The question I want to put to him is simply this: Why does the dam have far more silt now than before? Because no work was done. So where did the money go? Not only that, but it is now worse than ever. I'm putting this question to the last government because they borrowed so much money for this, for the desilting of the dam. Yet, as I've said before, it is worse because nothing was done. Ladies and gentlemen of the public, this question should be forcefully put to the leader of the opposition, who was then the prime minister of this country. If we are to be honest, there was very little work done because the whole idea was to give the impression that work was being done. And all the same, but at the same time, money was allegedly taken, maybe to share among the party, family, friends, and foreigners. Therefore, leader of the opposition, I ask you, did you betray the people of St. Lucia? The reason why I'm asking, because everything you said your government would do, you never fulfilled it. There was simply nada was done because you, as some would say, that your group were alleged con merchants. I say it quite clearly. All what your government promised they would do was simply pie in the sky. And as I said last week, it seems like flashing mirrors. Yet these are the same people, ladies and gentlemen, who had the audacity to call King a betrayer of the party, when it is they who betrayed King and the party. What King did not do was to betray St. Lucia. Very soon, the Millennium Highway will be newly opened, with a tremendous amount of work having done since the government came into power. I want to say quite categorically to Alan and Dominic Spider and a few others, and those in some television studios, a simple question as to whether they have investigated Martinez before getting involved with the individual. Because it is clear as daylight, as had been alleged, that the individual is a fraudster, a con merchant, and above all, owes a lot of money, as has been alleged. Now, we also know that he has a partner in his dealings who, as has been alleged also, is a friend of the leader of the opposition. Is that a fact? The country would like to know, and I too would like to know. I must say that I have watched some of the programs made a month or two ago, and I'm of the opinion that this individual is looking for publicity. He wants attention, and we are giving it to him. He is somewhat desperate to meet one of our ministers because he wants a grip on our government. And I'm sure that is how he went about his fracas with the St. Kitts government. I said to Martinez that you are a fake and a fraudster. Keep out of our country's business. What amazes me about the man is that he always seems to have the evidence, but wants the minister to come and see it for himself. His target is the Minister of Tourism Hilaire because that is who the opposition wants to target. And therefore, that is what this fly-by-night fraudster is allegedly being paid to focus on. Anyone with a bit of common sense can decipher for themselves what is going on. But they're too stupid to realize that people are not that stupid, even though the leader of the opposition thinks that 43% of us are mendicants in St. Lucia, and added to that, jackasses and barking dogs. I'll take a break at this juncture. Welcome back to Moving Forward. And I was speaking about when we were called mendicants, at least 43% of our people. Therefore, I want to ask Alan, the leader of the opposition, a valid question, and that is, what academic institution did you go to? Because we were told that you have an economic qualification. Where was it from? Why have you not told us much about that institution? Did you ever go there? Was the so-called academic qualification bought? I'm asking relevant questions. These are fundamental questions because at times I cannot believe that you as a leader of a country or party truly understand anything about economics. I say this in all sincerity because nothing you did as far as economic decisions were made as Prime Minister of St. Lucia had the capacity to develop and bring the gains that the country needed in its survival. I therefore simply say, go back many years ago when the cocoa palm was being built, and that your father once said to me that you were a spendthrift because he was fed up with the number of checks he had to sign. That is the truth, as God is my judge. You are without a doubt a corn merchant if that is the case. What amazes me is that Alan and his co-conspirators know full well the mess they left behind, only to find that the present government is overcoming some of the gross mismanagement of the economy by their government. Another question I'd like to ask is whether the United Records of the Poor under Alan don't realize the individual that they are dealing with in the person of Mr. Martinez? Are they using him, knowing his past, just to embarrass our government as he has his beef with Galaxy? A further question to the previous one is, why did we hear of Martinez or did not hear of Martinez before now? Why is it now, as the Labour and Unity government is in power? Ladies and gentlemen, we must not forget that Galaxy signed with the St. Lucian government under Alan in 2017. Once again, I ask, why did we not hear about this individual before that? Even his beef with the St. Kitts government, was he part of the alleged fraud that was taking place in St. Kitts at the time they were building that particular hotel? That somebody from here, that is the then Prime Minister, said he saw? There were certain alleged rumors. But again, it is significant because Martinez has his problems with Galaxy. Therefore, why is he so keen to bring St. Lucia, aided and abetted by some of the mischievous people in the opposition, to this fair island of ours? I want to ask the opposition, more so the past Prime Minister, to outline to the public all the transactions that took place as far as the range deals that were fermented during their period of government. Another question is why we had to pay so much to the Range Company for a CIP deal that fell through. The public needs to know every detail of that deal under the last government because the St. Lucian people had to pay a huge sum of money to Range. I therefore strongly believe that when we are dealing with the CIP monies, we need to know exactly what took place during the period of both governments in terms of the CIP monies. What we are seeing at present is missiles being flown towards the government who came and found the CIP in place. And not only that, they had infringed, that is the past government, some of the rules and regulations dealing with the CIP on many fronts. I do hope that after tonight, the last administration will come clean in terms of the dealings on CIP the CIP affair. And don't allow Martinez to throw stones at Minister Hilaire or Mr. Emmanuel. Do come clean and tell us the truth, because sooner or later it will all come out. More so as night follows day. The reason why I'm putting all this forward is because the opposition is asking for the government to give them figures about CIP. Yet in government they gave nothing, as I said before, simply nothing. They have been misleading the people of this island on all fronts, when in truth and in fact, they are the ones who mess everything up, but are looking for a scapegoat, and that is the present government as far as they're concerned. However, I can tell them that the con tricks will not work, because con merchants are found out sooner or later. In this affair, I would rather it be sooner rather than later. Therefore, this government is at present making every effort to put matters right, and that is upsetting all the sinews in the blood and veins of the United Records of the Poor, especially the higher echelon. They are at a loss as to show how to deal with the exceptional manner in which this government is dealing with the issues that lie before them. I therefore want to point out to them that this is so sad, because the country now has a leader who can stir the ship of state in the right direction and the right course. Because of that, they are beginning to see that they have no chance of ruling this Helen of the West for years to come. Therefore, if we remember, the individual they were attacking when in office is now their target in opposition, because he heads the CIP, and therefore, or the minister of the CIP, and therefore they see him as their target once again. What is upsetting is that these nincompoops, as I call them, don't seem to realize that they are somehow destroying the reputation of the country when it is unnecessary. And they know full well that they are the culprits that mismanage the economy of the country. Here is the leader of the opposition trying to question the Prime Minister about how much, again I say, in the escrow account, when it was he who was at the helm of getting that account for T.O.R. King, and therefore knows full well what is in it. Therefore, what we are seeing is a deliberate attempt to undermine the government. And what they are hoping is that the government will take some time trying to defend themselves on the CIP affair, and therefore not much would be done elsewhere. They seem lost as to how to deal with the government's good work. Well, they can they can jump high, they can jump low. They will not derail the government of Philip Joseph Pierre in the work that they have to do in putting the country back on track. The opposition seems petty and lost in their efforts to challenge this working government, and their naivety have them in a conundrum that they are simply desperate because they are seen as 17-0 at the next general election. Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you that it is just about 1 year and 4 months away for the election. Question, ladies and gentlemen of the opposition, are you panicking? Because maybe, just maybe, the leader of the opposition will have to go and live in the country that he's a product of. I'm also of the view that Dominic may have to run to Guyana to tell them that he was born there and would like to come back, because St. Lucia has cast them in the sewer or the dustbins of St. Lucian politics. So he wants to partake in the Guyanese oil production. Ladies and gentlemen, there's no doubt that I was somewhat bemused when a few of the opposition feel that they needed to run to a fraudster to help them to undermine the government of St. Lucia and the people of St. Lucia. And then our people at the next general election must suddenly realize that they are dealing with con artists, con merchants, and simply alleged fraudsters. Because one can only judge them by the friends they keep and indulge with, more so when they have some time in prison, when they've served some time in prison in 2 countries. I say to them in all sincerity, people will judge them on the company they keep and will come to the realization that they are fraudsters also. This is sad because the present opposition have brought our politics to one of the lowest level since they took power in 2016 and was literally kicked out in 2021, as I've said many times. Moving away slightly, the question I'd like to ask Alan is whether, as Prime Minister, he had any intention to break diplomatic relations with Taiwan for China. Here are my reasons for asking, because there are certain things that the bulk of St. Lucians may not know, even within the party faithful. There is also evidence that shows quite categorically, and a present minister in the government can attest to that in cabinet. However, I'm not going that far, because in 2016, he came to Taiwan unofficially. That is Alan. And from what I was told is that he was making alleged accusations that the then ambassador, Ray Mao, was helping the Labour Party to win the elections in 2016 with his dealings with the then Minister of Commerce, who represented Grosley then, Emma Hippolyte. Yes. He had a lot of, that is, the ambassador had a lot of dealings with the lady because of the projects they had undertook, regardless whether it was during the election or not, because they were in the pipeline long before the election. This individual will stoop to the lowest level because he has no decency about him, because he does not care about anyone or anything that does not bow to his way of thinking. He thinks his color puts him above us. Many at the time in St. Lucia was living on a lonely island of poverty, yet he did not see that and tried to manipulate the little that the country had to please his family, friends, and foreigners. I was told that on coming to Taiwan, where the Minister for External Affairs joined him then, that he was adamant that the ex-ambassador Ray Mao had to leave St. Lucia forthwith because he helped Labour. And Labour lost the elections, I can tell you. Many St. Lucians will recall that Ray Mao had to leave after 1 year in St. Lucia. No ambassador just had to spend 1 year, but he did. What was strange with this Prime Minister then is why the ambassador, before Ray Mao, asked to leave to return back to his homeland. That also is intriguing. Well, Ray Mao had to leave, however. Taiwan did not buy anything, but he said before they had proof that this was not so before he spoke to the foreign minister. Ah, well, that is a story that will be told at a later date, because I'm clearly involved in that. It is clear for all to see that the United Records of the Poor have stooped so low that they are now making it look as if the Prime Minister's daughter, who works at the CIP, united with, or with the CIP, is involved with others in, one would say, shady dealings, especially dealing with CIP. It shows you the level that they are going when they cannot get at the Prime Minister because of the desperation we see. They will be, I tell them this in all sincerity, you will be in the wilderness for some time to come. The Prime Minister was adamant that his daughter is not involved in anything to do with approving or disproving applicants. And therefore, their deliberate attempts to malign him is scaremongering to the lowest common denominator. These individuals are without a doubt evil to the core. What amazes me is that We continue to see the coal pot calling the kettle black. I have never in my life seen such a bunch of liars and alleged fraudsters as I now see in the opposition party. I put that to my listeners because I have never experienced what I'm now seeing in our politics before. And it is clear that they have destroyed Sir John's party from top to bottom. Therefore, for me, they are without a doubt not the United Workers' Party, but the United Wreckers of the Poor, which I now insist in calling them that name, as I believe it used to by the press then. It will jolt them. I hope the press use it because it will jolt them to the fact that people will finally recognize them for who they are. And Sir John will then be able to sleep peacefully, knowing that it is not the party he left behind. I will take my next break and I'll be back. Welcome back to Moving Forward. Now I was talking about Sir John's party. And I want to say tonight, honestly, I heard an individual who says that he's the chairman of the party, making remarks that many I've spoken to simply felt disgusted by such a thought. Families should never be brought into politics on that level, as witnessed by what the individual had to say about the Christmas barrels issue. It sounded pathetic and uncalled for. It was simply a papa show or pappy show, and was coming from someone who simply had no integrity. That is the level that this particular individual have sunk to, and he's the chairman of the party. I thought that was bad until I heard a lady who was an ex-minister of education on a program on Facebook at one of their general meetings dealing with what she did for education in St. Lucia. I was simply appalled. This lady simply butchered the English language in presenting her case, which was full of lies. I immediately thought that the lies people resort to in politics, more so in a small country like ours, is unbelievable and dishonest from top to bottom. I'm even more disturbed when I hear Spider talking about crime. The question I put to him and these other individuals is to show me how they did better than this government when they were in power for 5.5 long years. We the people want to see their success in any area dealing with the progress of St. Lucia during their period in office. Was it not Gail Rigobert who took the laptops from our children that was given by the Labour government? No wonder I hear that having a PhD is having your head permanently damaged. And I go even further. When an American told me that they called them public high school, that is PhD, public high school diploma. These are the people, when coming into office, stopped every project that Labour had in the pipeline, and who was being worked on, and they held it for 3 long years, and many were dumped and reworked to suit themselves and their friends, as has been alleged, like knocking down 2 newly built buildings on the hospital project at St. Jude to build a monstrosity that cost a fortune and was simply pathetic and was literally a ways and means of throwing money about with their friends, as has been alleged. We must now bring about decency to our lives, and to have government that is accountable. And like the Prime Minister continued to say, the people must come first. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, we have a Prime Minister that will be at the forefront of our development because he is a determined man. And we must give him all the help we can and not allow the gossips, lies, and misinformation by a bunch of people with no integrity, because all they are interested in is to spread alarm and despondency to get back into power. When I hear their PRO, I am more convinced than ever that they have no integrity and are basically dishonest individuals when the lies they are prepared to throw at this government. What upsets me is that they accuse the government of all the things they never did. I want to point out that this so-called PRO started a project at Grand Riviere Playground and never finished it after years. Today one can go to the playing field and see the newly built building that stands majestic and built within 3 years. That is what he should go and see. And this will give him an idea what he was useless as a minister and a fake of the highest degree, just as his leader and his deputy was all about, using the St. Jude, as has been alleged, his money-making itinerary. When one thinks of the DSH project that cost the country an arm and a leg, it is simply offensive that this ex-leader can now sit on the outside looking in and trying to be critical of a government he never was and will never be. It shows how deceitful he was and is at present. I simply want to ask St. Lucians what we achieved out of the DSH project. Not only that, where is that project that the Taiwanese did called the meat processing factory? And that the Taiwanese government built at a huge cost? These are the sort of questions that they should be asking the ex-Prime Minister in New York and at the so-called barbecue that they had last week. I also want to know, seriously, who paid for some of the tickets for them getting there. However, honestly, I really felt disgusted, as I said before, by the so-called chairman of the party, who seemed to want to get votes from the barrels coming from those in the United States, that there is a precondition for getting those barrels, and it is only if they vote for UWP. This individual is so stupid to know that they will say yes. And when they go to cast their votes, they will vote Labour because it is the party best for the country. This is how naive and stupid that this character is all about. I say this tonight with all honesty. If I think that this government was going about doing things the wrong way, I would be the first, as I've said before, to say so to them. And if they continue, I would not give them my support. I've always believed that St. Lucia must come first, not government or opposition. We must develop the country for our children and their children to come. And before I go, I don't want to forget, I want to ask Alan, the leader of the opposition, one question again. Where is our $7.3 million that you paid for COVID-19 pills we never got? Does he think, or do you think, we will forget that money, which was simply given away to friends? More so, what rules and regulations dealing with finance of the country was totally disregarded? And the constitution that deals with finance was not observed. I said to him, please, get that money back into the system because the government needs it to do so much for the many old folks that we have and sick people of the country that needs the money. I know that many people fear nothing more terribly than to take a position, which I'm taking, which stands out sharply and clearly from the prevailing opinion. The tendency I see at times is for most to adopt a view that is so ambiguous that it will include everything, and so popular that it will include everybody. Not a few men, now a few men who cherish lofty and noble ideas or ideals, hide them under a bushel for the fear of being called different. I don't mind calling it different. This is not my style because it has always been my belief that what is right and what is wrong is wrong. I have the audacity to believe that St. Lucians can have 3 meals a day for their bodies, education and culture for their minds, especially our children. Although our culture needs to be reinvigorated, and we must have dignity and equality and freedom for our spirits. I further believe that what self-centered men and women have torn, as we have seen with the last government and other-centered men, therefore other-centered men and women can build up to make St. Lucia the pride of the Caribbean, as it would, and this Labour Party government will do so. I want to say that in this program, I've tried to be honest, because to be honest is to confront the truth of us, as I've always said. Regardless how unpleasant and inconvenient the truth may be, I believe that we must expose and face it, and if we are to achieve a better quality of life for all St. Lucians, brothers and sisters in this fair land of ours, I once again say to you all that we were born black, and we should be proud of that. So go in peace to serve the One Most High until we meet again next week. Take care of yourself, and God bless you. Good night and goodbye for now.